My name is Elizabeth Evans, and I'm a homeschooling mom to 4 kids, ages 2 through 9, and we are learning how to make joy normal.
My name's Bonnie Landry, and I want to welcome you to season 2 of our podcast, Make Joy Normal. We want to thank everybody for their support and how much you've shared this podcast with your friends and those who you think it would be helpful for. I am a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma. I've been homeschooling for 30 years. My kids are ages 14 to 33. I only have one at home now. I'm a speaker, a writer, a blogger, and I guess we're podcasters now, Elizabeth. And I'm an advocate of joy. So welcome to our podcast. Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Is it weird for our listeners when we say good evening to each other and they're getting it in the morning?
I'm not sure. Should we say good morning from now on? Even though
so even if we're recording at night and I'm having a glass of wine, good morning.
I like it.
That's funny. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. Yeah. We got things poking up in our garden. I don't know if you saw me put that on Instagram, but my garlic is up and I have daffodils up and I'm just like,
Oh, see, we had a bunch of snow melt today and it kind of feels like spring is coming, but it's Michigan, so spring is nowhere near. All right. Well, one question that we sort of touched on last week, but not really in full, is kind of how to deal with burnout and kind of know the signs to kind of keep from burning out.
Yeah, this is a great question as we approach the end of January, because this time of year, January, February, is notorious for moms really needing a lift, right? Really kind of burnout time. And I think that's probably the most important thing, is to recognize in yourself the signs of burnout, right? Okay, what is it? Do I get snappish? Do I get tired? Is it hard to get up in the morning? Is it, am I more weepy? What is it that is happening for you? So self-awareness, and we've talked about that on several occasions. Self-awareness is a really good idea, right?
Right.
So that we recognize when we're sort of, starting to pile into a downhill. And the other side of that, of course, is recognizing what helps you to pull out of that. But it's much easier to pull out of it when it first starts and manage than it is to let yourself get right down to, rock bottom,
Sure.
which by the end of February, some people are, right? And that's when people start saying, I wonder how bad it would be if I put my kids back in school. So, when you start thinking those kinds of things, start to assume that it's burnout, not that that you're failing at this, right?
Right.
So be really aware of your own responses and what you're doing. And if you have to write that down, and however you keep track of your day, maybe you set aside a little corner, of your bullet journal or your planner or whatever it is you use, and just say how you're feeling, right? Maybe a good idea to actually do all the time, just a little, one word. What is today like for me? When I reflect back on it, or how did I wake up feeling, or whatever works for you. But just be aware of where your mind is going, right?
Sure.
I think the other part of this sort of side of this coin is, a lot of times, depending on where people live, you're in a snowy place. So, people can't get out as much. The kids are getting rangy. And of course, with COVID now, we've been experiencing this for almost a year, and people are rangy, kids are rangy. And so, what do we do about that? Maybe we have to enroll in a little private dance class, or maybe we have to, get some tumble mats and start, pulling out the tumble mats in the kitchen every day, that maybe some physical activity in whatever way you can deploy that in your family is going to be really helpful for that. I also think just having some fun together is, like maybe you watch an extra movie, most people sort of have an amount of time that they are comfortable with their kids, watching something, but maybe you just watch something really silly and fun on YouTube together, or you watch a fun Disney movie together or something like that, a couple times a week, just to keep your heart light, right? It's important to keep our hearts light. It's important also when burnout starts to happen, just do not put a lot of expectations on yourself, right?
Right.
And this is where, you know, the things like the checking the boxes, which I'm always talking about, you know, we have to get away from that mindset of checking the boxes, that we have to really think, okay, is this the time for checking boxes right now when I'm already feeling really, really burned out? Maybe I just need to do fun, cool stuff with my kids. Maybe it's a great time to just throw off everything else and do some fun science experiments or something. I think I've mentioned this book before. I'm going to mention it again right here because it is the kind of thing that this time of year would be a really great time to introduce something like this. There's a book that I used a lot called Science Is. Okay. And then just ... Science is ... And it's just a book full of experiments that you can do, and it'll label them. These are ones of just things that you have around the house. These are ones that require a little bit more prep. These are ones that require a little bit more prep, right? But most of them are really, really easy experiments. And they tell you what subject areas you're covering in that particular experiment at the end of each experiment. So if you're worried that you're not doing math, you're not doing language arts, you're not doing whatever, it'll say, you're doing history, you're doing language arts, you're doing, spatial learning, you're doing whatever. And it'll give you a great list. And guaranteed, if you are sitting doing an experiment with your kids, you are doing language arts, right?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about it, you're getting them to explain what's going on, you're getting them to revisit, sort of their comprehension of the experiment. They're taking their guesses on what they might happen when you do this experiment. So injecting that kind of thing into your homeschooling right now would be a great idea, and not in addition to what you already do, but instead of what you already do, right?
Sure.
Go to your favorite toy store or go to Amazon or whatever and pick out some experiment kits or some project kits. That's just something that arrives at your door. You can open it up, have all kinds of fun with it. It doesn't require a lot of prep on your end either.
Sure.
Right.
I have to share, when you were talking about kind of just like taking a minute, watch something fun with your kids on YouTube or something. Well, there was a day that I was having that I don't know that it was burnout, but I was definitely feeling overwhelmed. It was like every time a kid would jump off the couch, it would like irk me. And I was very aware that I was feeling like this and that they weren't actually doing anything wrong. And so we have one of those Google Home things, and we were playing kids music on it, but they kept shouting at it to change songs. And so I was like, guys, just stop. And as I said, stop, a song came on that nobody had requested. And let me just add a little something. My husband and I do not like our kids using potty humor. We've never introduced it to them. They just have figured it out. I kid you not. They just know.
It's in their DNA. I know it is, because we were the same, right? And it was like, oh, yeah, really?
Right. So the song that came on was a classical orchestral piece. I forget which one it was. And it was like to the sound, to the tones of Passing Gas, just over and over again to the beats of the song. And we all just started laughing, myself included. And I just kept sitting there thinking, we all needed this. This was kind of perfectly timed. And it's not something I would ever just put on, but wow, that was perfect.
God knew. That's fabulous.
Right.
And there's some funny things too, like just funny little kids things on YouTube, if you come across or whatever, just to lighten up your day. There's a comedian that we really love, and he was like, if I was ever feeling like that, I just would put him on, because he just would kill me every time I had him on. His name is Tim Hawkins. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a Christian comedian and a homeschooling dad, and he is a hoot. Like, he's an amazing musician, and a lot of his things are songs that he's kind of like Weird Al Yankovic. Like he puts different lyrics to a song, but he's just fantastic. Yeah. So if you just need a light moment, do that. A couple of other things are popping into my brain here. Ideas are popping in faster than I can say them. Hold on, I gotta write it down because I'm gonna forget. One thing I think is important is to be able to, if you know you're heading on a downhill, or if you even think it could happen, right? And don't be fooled. Like if you feel great right now, we can all suffer from burnout, right? So definitely, if you can prepare for that, that's one way of of sort of playing offense, with getting low or bummed out. If you can talk to your husband about it, right, or talk to a friend even, and just say, listen, I may be heading down this path, or I may be heading down some burnout, and if I can just kind of offload with you, maybe for a few minutes every day or every night or whenever it's convenient, let's find a time. If I can just spend 10 minutes offloading my concerns, that would probably really help me a lot, so that your husband or your friend doesn't feel like you're coming to them to fix their problem, but just to be a sounding board. Because a lot of times we tend to reserve, especially with our husbands, because they want to fix things, right? We want to reserve our offloading so that we're not stressing them out, so that we're not thinking that they think they have to, be some different kind of dad that is helping you, get through this thing or fixing your problem or whatever. But if we can tell them that all I need is for you to just listen, I don't need to solve anything, then you have a safe sounding board so that you can just pour out all the things that are bugging you every day. And there's a huge, that's a huge way of getting a weight off us, right?
Sure.
And a lot of times when we were younger, I would be doing this with my husband without the context of me saying, I just need you to be a sounding board. And he'd be like, okay, and he'd go into fixing mode. And it took me a while to realize I need to actually say, no, I just need you to hear. And I don't need you to solve. I will be satisfied with the hearing, right? Yeah. And just knowing that I can offload with you and without it stressing you out, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. That's great. And I usually do that. I mean, my husband's working from home right now, so anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll just come up to his office. But the only thing with that is usually I have one or two kids that follow me, so it doesn't really help always.
That's funny. Just flipping back for a moment, we were talking about some sort of things you can do with your kids. And again, not in addition to what you're already doing, but instead of what you're already doing, right? And know that it's for a short period of time. You can get back to your regularly scheduled life, when you're feeling a little more okay about things. There's amazing aquariums and museums and zoos that have online what do you call it, like sort of an online virtual field trip, right? And there is some incredible stuff available to you, like somebody will set up a camera to watch, eagles hatching out of their nests. I personally could sit there for hours watching baby eagles hatch. I could do that.
I know, yeah.
And so if we can sort of be creative, and maybe again, some brainstorming with a friend or a husband or whatever, be creative about how you view school right now. Right. I like to have, we have a pretty clear routine about, how we've always done things, but, it's okay to shake that up like we did at Christmas time. We shake that up. We take a few weeks off. We do something different. It's still school. You're still learning. Yeah. There's no way you can get around learning.
Right. Well, and even like I went to the traditional schooling, right? The brick and mortar. And I mean, there were still field trips, and so we're not sitting and staring at books, but we're still learning out on the field, right?
Exactly. And, I mean, there would be days when you would get a substitute teacher in and you would do nothing. It's okay, right?
Or the days where the favorite days where they'd wheel in the TV
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, yeah.
Oh, that's the TV. Something, and just as I'm just reminding people of this, in our sort of 30-year homeschooling career, we've had probably 3 years where we didn't do very much because they were crisis years, and everybody has them, and so if our kids all graduated on time, nobody, it was just okay, right? There are crisis times, and it doesn't
Sure.
mean, your kids are failing or you're failing. It just means, okay, you got to rise above the crisis and do something different for a while. That's all. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, should we move on to the next
Sure.
question?
Yeah.
Okay. So how about how do we motivate ourselves, to
Okay.
get the
So,
kids ready and going and to sit down and learn, right?
right. I mean, I suppose this is in this question, sort of the subtext that comes up for me for sure is that you should enjoy homeschooling your kids. You should
Sure.
enjoy parenting, even if your kids are
Hmm.
in school. You should enjoy those things. That doesn't mean you're going to enjoy it every minute, right?
Hmm.
But if it is a grind to get yourself motivated uh, to do the things you need to do, maybe you have to look at how you do things, right?
Sure.
So I think that, in every question, I think we have to look at the bigger picture. So, what is it that's preventing me from feeling motivated? Is it because I hate the homeschooling that we're doing? I hate the way we're doing it. Is
Hmm.
it because uh, I'm feel lethargic all the time and I have no energy? I think we need to step back and look at the forest in a sense,
Sure.
and figure out what it is that is preventing us from being motivated. Okay.
Hmm.
And the range of possibilities in there are huge, right? I mean, it could be our diet. We could eat poorly, we could not be getting enough sleep, we could be hating the curriculum program that we've chosen and we just find it irritating, we could be sick and tired of dealing with squabbling all day long. So looking at the why seems to me like it's going to be uh, a much more important aspect of motivating ourselves than thinking, okay, how can I get up every morning and be motivated, right?
Sure.
Accepting that there are days that you're not going to be motivated, right?
Hmm.
But if it's your life, isn't it's going to be impossible to motivate your kids if you yourself are not motivated, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
what motivates you? There is a gal who does work about motivating. What the heck is her name? I'm sorry, it's just not gonna come to my mind right now, but she talks about what it is that motivates people. I will put it in the show notes. But she talks about, I just gotta write it down so I don't forget. She talks about different people are motivated in different ways. So sometimes people are motivated just by their own steam.
Hmm.
Sometimes people are motivated by um, competition. Sometimes people are motivated by accountability, right? Sometimes people are motivated by somebody else telling them what it is they have to do.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's different ways that we are motivated, and knowing yourself, knowing how you're motivated, uh, might be really helpful in this particular question, right?
Sure.
So I know for myself, like if I am never motivated by somebody else telling me what to do,
Hmm.
right? I'm never motivated by somebody else telling me what the goals should be. I'm never motivated even by being accountable. I kind of motivated on my own steam. Like basically it's not my idea, I'm not really interested,
Okay.
and which has its pros and cons for sure, right? Because
Hmm.
it's hard to be, sometimes you want to sort of be, I'm just such a not a joiner, right?
Hmm.
And so sometimes I would like to do a thing that somebody is doing, and yet I know that that's not going to be my motivating factor, right?
Sure.
So, I'll just give you an example of this. I study Italian with Duolingo, right? I've been doing it for years. So, it has within Duolingo language studies, it has these things like sort of like social connection, sort of like social media within the app. And so people can compare notes on how they're doing and how many stars they got and and all of that just falls flat on me because it's just meaningless. It's meaningless to me. But for some people, that might be like knowing how they're doing compared to somebody that maybe they've developed a relationship with or whatever might be really helpful. So I'm sorry, I can't remember the gal's name, but my daughter had been telling me about her, and it was really interesting what she has to say, and then how you manage in order to work best with how you're best motivated, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say it's really a work of self. In order to get kids motivated, it's a work on self first, on what it is that's preventing me from doing what it is I want to accomplish.
Sure.
Right.
My friend and I were actually kind of talking about this today, not directly, but we were talking about heating our homes because we're in Michigan. And I kind of told her, I was like, I keep our house at like 69, 70. And, a lot of people keep it cooler just to save money, but I hate being cold. It's like, if I'm cold, I will sit on the couch under a blanket and just huddle there. I won't want to get up. I don't want to feed my kids. I don't want to do anything because I just need to be warm. And you know how some people get hangry, like angry while they're hungry? That's me when I'm cold. I can't handle it. I don't do it well.
That's interesting. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I never, like, I never even, barely even registers if I'm hungry. I could go hours and hours and hours and not eat, but I have kids who are blood sugar sensitive. Right.
Yeah.
And, obviously that's going to be a thing, but I'm the same. If I'm cold, I just want to huddle down and not do anything. So being warm was really important for me as well. Right. So those are good things to know too, just temporal things. What is it that makes me shut down? Right.
Yeah. Like this morning, it took me a good extra hour to finally just be like, all right, I got to get out from under this blanket and start schoolwork. And I mean, we did it. And actually there are some days where I'm like, okay, just bring the books to me. We'll just do it on the couch, where it's warm.
Yeah. Here was a life-changing thing for me. Like I used to I was very unmotivated to go outside. And I like going outside when it's warm out. I love being outside. I love working in my garden. But if it was damp or cool around here, it's damp a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And it was so hard for me to motivate myself to go out for a walk or go out and just be in the yard or whatever, those early spring garden chores and whatnot. Be really tough to get out there. And then I invested in a down coat. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was the thing that made all the difference. Like there's never a day where I don't think, no, I won't be warm enough. Right. And I thought, why did I not invest in that earlier? Now I've been wearing one of my son's down vests. If I'm cold in the house, I wear a down vest until I feel warm enough. Right. Such a simple thing. And yet, how good for you. Like if you never recognized that was a motivating thing, that might really hold you back. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I need to start actually wearing those like nice caps in the house, that I usually wear outside because that helps keep you warm too.
Yeah. In Canada, we call them toques.
Oh, how do you spell that?
Touque. Okay.
All right.
Yes. So it must be a French word, but people will quote Canadians quite frequently. Say, those toques you guys wear.
Nice.
Yeah. So how do you motivate yourself other than that? Other than knowing that you need to be warm?
So I actually really enjoy homeschooling my kids. I really do. It's more so motivating my kids, so like that's the part that I kind of tend to dread is, okay, got to tell my oldest it's math time and he's going to get upset, even though I've been prepping him for the last hour and a half that we're going to do math. We're going to, so that I think is the challenge. It's not so much motivating me, but really being able to motivate my kids. And I did, after texting you the other day, I did ask my son, I said, okay, how long do you think you can spend on math? And he told me 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, that's more than I thought.
So set a timer.
I did. I set a timer. And as soon as it went off, even if we were in the middle of a problem, I let him go.
Yeah.
And
So
then,
just to want to give the reader some context. So Elizabeth had texted me a couple of days ago saying, I just don't know how to get this kid to do anything. Right. And so this is what I said is talk to him about what he's able to do. I've mentioned this before in the podcast, if that's just have a starting point, even if he says 1 minute, work with it, right? Start for 1 minute. And so 10 minutes is actually remarkable.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a foundation. You're laying a foundation for the future,
Right.
but then the child feels like they have some control over what happens, and the timer's set. So you're going to, if you, that's your deal, even if we're halfway through question, we walk away. Great.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
And today I said, all right, it's math time. And he goes, okay, another 10 minutes. And I was like, all right. He felt like he could do it. So we're maintaining.
Fantastic.
That's good.
It works. It works. And especially like when you're talking with kids about, this is where, some conversation is so important, like say you're doing writing or dictation or whatever, and they're balking, work with them. Okay. What do you think is fair? We need to do this every day, but what do you think is fair? Like, I know this is hard for you. Maybe your hand gets sore, maybe it's boring or whatever it is. 1 line, 1 minute, 7 words, what works for you? Right. And if you work with what they come up with.
Right. Yeah. And I will also say, just off topic a little bit, we started a new math curriculum. And I think I mentioned it before. It's the Charlotte Mason Arithmetic book series.
Okay.
And I know my oldest likes it because it's all oral based. So there's very, very little writing. And that's where he freezes up. So it's a lot of just reading out loud a word problem, and he sits and he responds orally, and he loves it. My husband asked him the other day, what was your favorite thing you learned today? And he said math, which was a shock.
Wow. That's great. I mean, oral is such a great way, especially when you're building that foundation, just do it orally because a lot of times for kids, it's just that holding the pencil in their hand. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So work with your kids, talk with them. If you're trying to motivate them, talk with them about what would work for them, put some power into their hands so that you have a basis to start on, right? You can't get blood from a stone. You just can't.
Right. And when it comes to writing, especially, pay attention if your kids are holding their pencils or pens too tightly or pressing down too firmly. That really tires them out, and they're unaware that they're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm a Montessori kid, so they kind of drill that in to be aware of that, so.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
It's fun to find an article or something on that so that we can link it.
Yeah.
I can try and find something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we have one more question?
Yes.
We have time for
okay. So do you have any advice for how to find a groove as a new homeschooling family? That might be a loaded question.
I've got some advice. Who knew? Yes. I think as a new homeschooling family, the very best thing you can do, instead of getting your full, grade 1 and grade 4 and grade whatever curriculum, that you start with nothing and you add one thing in at a time. Okay. Because how do you find your groove when you're loading a whole new thing onto your family all at once? Right? That's going to be really tough on you and them. It takes us time. So, just for example, say you started doing dictation, and you're doing dictation with maybe you've got a couple of kids or whatever, you're doing dictation with them, and that's okay. This is, we're doing school, right? You're doing dictation. Now you're doing school in other ways too, but you just don't know you are, or they don't know you are, you're reading together, you're baking together, whatever it is you do in a day. You're starting to establish a pattern and you're starting to just get used to this thing. Okay. Yeah, this is working for me. Or maybe it's not working for you. You decide to do some other language arts program. Okay, we're just going to do this one thing. And you could spend your whole first year or two doing this. And then, okay, this is getting easy now. I'm kind of mastering this part of it. Let's put something else in. Okay, maybe we put in math. And we start doing math, and this program is working for us or not working for us. I'm 2 months in and I'm still finding it really confusing and really hard to do. Maybe I need to look at something else. If you can borrow programs from people, that's really helpful, because then you don't feel committed. Oh, I spent the money, I have to do it, even though we all hate it and nobody's learning anything, right? If we spend money on something, we get very, attached to that. We have to make it work, so I would say introduce
Right.
one thing at a time, in terms of sort of sit down learning and whatnot. And one idea at a time, and try things out, try them on, it's totally okay to do that.
Yeah.
Right now, this is not something that we have to worry about right now because of COVID, but most homeschoolers like the idea of going to conferences, right? Homeschool conferences, and even online conferences. But the big thing about an in-person conference, they're great. I highly recommend going to conferences, but beware the vendor booth. Okay. Now, I'll tell you a couple things right off the bat. If you're going to buy things, support those vendors. Those homeschool vendors, they're the people who are going through all the curriculum and really deciding what homeschoolers want, right? They're really bringing it to you. So support them. If you can buy something through Amazon, you can a couple bucks more through your homeschool vendor, support them. Okay. But if you go to a vendor fair, it's a guarantee that you'll walk through and you'll think, oh, I have to have that. I have to have that. Use it as a place, and it's on special. So you really want to buy it. You really want to get it. No, it's okay. Even if you paid a little bit more for it because you missed the special, take your time and think about it. Think about whether or not it's going to add to or detract from your family life. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that many homeschoolers, they even sometimes a homeschool meeting they'll go to, and they'll be, people will bring their math programs and they'll look at 10 different math programs and think, oh no, I'm doing it all wrong, or this will be so much better, or whatever. And they impulse buy. Take your time, even deciding whether you're ready to start a new, introduce some new subject area into your homeschooling. Be very gentle with yourself. Those early years, most of their learning is done in your innate day-to-day stuff that you're doing with them anyways. Very little is learned through their sit-down work.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I will say my 6-year-old, we must have just said something in passing, but one thing that he remembers is about how things are made from atoms. And he tells everybody about this. And we've never formally studied it at all.
Yeah.
But he just knows, and it clicked. And he asked, is the air made of atoms, or are eyes made of atoms? It's just like, he just focuses on this. It interests him. And yeah, once again, we never sat down and studied it.
Yeah. And another thing in terms of just getting into your groove, just read fiction, read nonfiction, read storybooks, read nursery rhymes, spend a lot of time reading to your kids. It's just so good for them. It's so good for you. Don't read crap, read good stuff. If you read a book and you really don't like reading it, put it away. Don't, want to read to your kids. So only have that which you want to read to them. Right.
Sure.
And I mean, you'll find over the years, there's dozens and maybe hundreds of books you'll want to read to your kids. But if it's crappy and you don't like it, don't have it around, because inevitably that'll be the book they bring to you over and over and over again, like cheesy, Disney stories and things like that. Right.
Yeah.
Invest in either the time of, going to the library and getting good quality books, or, purchasing them. And there's some great book review sites. There's a book, this would be not strictly for Catholics for sure, but it's called Catholic Books for Children. I think I'll put it in the show notes. And she's an amazing reviewer, and she's got like sort of menus on her blog that are a website that will say, for 2 to 4 year olds, for 6 to 8 year olds, good recommendations for read alouds, for girls, for boys, all kinds of stuff. But the investment in good literature is really worth it, because if you have crap around your house, you won't want to read it to them. Right. And make sure you spend a significant amount of your day, just reading to your kids. Have set story times, and be willing to just set that time aside. It's not usually very long, 20 minutes here and there. Sure. Times a day, that's great. Yeah. Be gentle with yourself. For sure. Yeah. How are we doing for questions? Is that a wrap for today?
Good. That's a wrap.
Okay. Next week, we're going to be interviewing a fellow who has developed a product to help parents who are trying to minimize screen time with their kids. And I think that I'm just very interested in it. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm very interested in talking to them. So we will bring that in tomorrow, next week. And you can find us in all the usual places, on my Facebook page. You can message me or Instagram, Make Joy Normal. And you can also email me via my website. And we will have a great week, and we will talk next week. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.